So, yeah, this one's called Career Insights. The subtitle was Software Engineering in Games, but there's nothing to software engineering applicable. So if you're in another discipline, it's still kind of applicable and you can listen in. This is me. That is photoshopped. Hilariously so, it used to hang at NHTV in the hallway there when I was a lecturer. It was up for a whole year. No one ever questioned it. Yeah. My mate was the guy that took the pictures. He worked on the art department. He photoshopped it, sent it to me, and I was like, ship it. And it stayed there for a year. No one ever questioned it. My wife hates it, so I keep using it. Yeah. So this is going to cover into my role. I work at Sports Interactive as a developer advocate. That's a title that warrants an explanation. I'll get there, okay? But Sports Interactive, we work on Football Manager. Soon to be another addition to this, which causes it to be an uneven number. I'll probably put 26 somewhere in there, quite large, quite big, okay? Who's played FM before? Cool. Yeah, it's all right. It's fair enough. Yeah, it's a bit of a niche game. It's pretty interesting, but yeah, we've got a lot of additions and a new one to come out in about 2 weeks, so I'm phenomenally busy at the minute. But basically, it's a football simulation. You take charge of a club, and it simulates the world of football. I think there's about 2,500 clubs in there, spread across all of the 51 nations we have. Pick a team, you can manage it. If not, there's probably some DLC you can get that'll help you do that. But anyway, began life in the 80s as championship manager, developed in a bedroom, which is kind of cool. Then it got bigger, moved to an office, and now a lot of us work remote, and we don't develop in our bedrooms, right? But we've got offices and stuff like that inside our house or at kitchen tables, etc. Yeah. We were purchased by Sega in 2003. Partnership with Sega in 2003, and we were published by them in 2006. Yeah. So we've been under the Sega umbrella since then. Cool. So it's multi-award winning. Yeah, we've got a pretty passionate fan base who, over the last few weeks, have really been entertaining to read when we've dropped new trailers and stuff for 26 with a sort of massive graphical overhaul, and everyone just goes, I play in 2D anyway. So it's always nice to read. But yeah, we've got about 25 years worth of experience. Some of our engineers have been at the company for 30 years, which is great. I don't know what they count their 25 years in there, but yeah. But how did I get here? Okay, so me. I started out as a programmer. I worked in AAA industry on AAA stuff, not so AAA stuff. Yeah, it was AAA until we shipped it, and then we got reviewed, and it wasn't AAA anymore. I worked in mobile dev as well. I've shipped stuff on Nokia handhelds, in Flashlight, in C++ as well, on Symbian OS. Shipped stuff on BlackBerry. I think it was like about 10 years ago. If it had a screen, I'd probably ship something on it. Yeah. So yeah, I was a programmer at Venom Games where we worked on boxing games. One of them was Prize Fighter. I got to get my hands dirty on PS3, 360, original Xbox, Wii, DS as well. Always sad I never got to ship anything on the Game Boy Advance, but I still kind of technically do now, as well as hobby stuff. But yeah, and Game Gear as well, because I work for Sega. Someone pointed out that I should probably try and do some Game Gear homebrew at some point. But I worked at Venom, and then it wasn't until my second studio, which was a racing games studio. Does everyone know, like the top two images you won't know, right? Because that was a small company me and my mate had. We shipped those. Bottom one's Prize Fighter. Anybody know what the other image is? Good. I'm not going to fess up to that one anytime soon. It was a cancelled title that was then resurrected and shipped, and it was terrible. But it was an experience to work on. And it was at that company I sort of learned the importance of code communication. So there was this bit of code, something similar to that was in our engine or in the gameplay code. But the problem was it was in there like in 5 different places. Yeah, exactly the same thing. Just a raycast hit. And it turns out that 4 people had written it. So one of them had written it twice, right? And it's that thing of like, it really sort of gets to me is this whole idea of we don't need to keep making the same mistakes. We don't need code duplication, right? I know as engineers, sometimes it's really easy to just go, I need this function, but slightly different. Control C, Control V, change a couple of things, right? That's quick and that's easy, but now you've got twice as much code to maintain. And the problem with that is if we somehow find a bug in one of those functions, it's probably in 5 of those functions, right? Less code, better design is better. So yeah, I lucked out with the first studio because it was a small team of about 30 people, the entire studio. But everyone there was actually like a really good communicator. And I picked up on loads of stuff that I just sort of seemed to come naturally. And it was one of those things that I was really lucky that studio had that. And then when I moved to the next studio, it was about 3 times the size. There wasn't that communication there. And suddenly I realized how important that was and really noticed it was missing. So I started having sit downs and chats with mid-level engineers, junior engineers, the interns that we had to try and stop this type of thing being written in 5 different places and instead just writing it in one place. There's a great, in one of the shipped games, there's one of the racing games that I shipped. It wasn't until after it shipped that we discovered that every single car in that had a parachute. Yeah. Because we'd previously worked on a drag racing game where drag racing cars need parachutes to slow down. Every other car, like Ferraris, they don't need parachutes, but they're in there. They just have 0 weight, so there's 0 applicable mass to actually affect the physics of the simulation. But yeah, so the next title we shipped after that, there was no more parachutes because I got moved to gameplay code instead of like engine specific. But yeah. So after I sort of programmed for a while and I ended up owning enough textbooks, I became a lecturer and I spent like 10 years lecturing in Oz, in the Netherlands, and over here, right? Just teaching games programming, coding. And whilst that was fun, and it's nice to see the creativity that comes out of it and stuff, and I wasn't too old to feel irrelevant, which is good. I'm starting to now, though. I think the point was when I showed, it was a slide on maths, and I had the matrix in there because, I was trying to fill up it with slides with images, and someone said, oh, my dad watched that movie. I was like, oh, I'm too old for this. And they didn't even know who the Blues Brothers were as well. So that was kind of really sad. Anyway, I did miss the actual development side of it. So I moved back into games. For the past nearly 5 years now, I've been with Sports Interactive working on Football Manager. But I'm a developer advocate. I'm not just a software engineer. So my role with the studio is to look at, the talent we have, upskilling that talent, bringing new talent in. So onboarding people into the company. We've made Football Manager for 25 plus years. We have our own way of doing things, our own workflows. So we've got to have something in place to get people up to speed with that, which is cool. Because when I left the industry, when I left like AAA to go and teach, my first job was, whilst it was great and everyone was good at communicating, it was very much trial by fire. There was no introduction. It was kind of like, yep, here's the code and you're going to be doing some mini games, so go away. And that was kind of it. Whereas now we have these onboarding processes. So there's pathways into it. I look at pathways into engineering as well. So people from QA, production, other disciplines that maybe want to move across and move into engineering and how we can facilitate that. I'm also looking at improving our way of doing things as an industry we're developing. So it's a case of, okay, what are we not doing that everyone else is that we can adopt and bring in? Or is there something we're doing which is great that we need to tell everybody else about? So I was looking for opportunities for growth, like new technology comes along, building for multiple platforms can be made easier with modern engines. So we had our own code base for 25 plus years, give or take, right? Because Championship Manager did start out basic initially on platforms, and then it was written in C and then into C++, and we still have some C. And 2 years ago, when FM23 was shipping, I did find some code in there on how to load, what they call PKM textures, yeah, which is a texture format that hasn't been popular since 1998. It's no longer used, but we still have the code to load it. It's just, luckily, we're not loading any of them. So that was cool. We don't have that anymore. I took that out. But yeah, so I onboard people into the company, look at, developing our skills, upskilling us, new languages from C++ to C# and what that means for our engineers. What version of C++ do we use? As that evolves now, okay? When I started out, it was kind of like, okay, we had C++ 98, and that was it. And it wasn't until 10 years in, it was like, oh, we've got C++ 11 coming up. And now it's updated fairly regularly. And there's always new things coming in. It's like, oh, can we use that? Is that supported on Switch, etc.? We've also got constraints with our development, okay? So FM is an annually released game. Don't hold me to that. But this needs to take place alongside development. We can't just go like, okay, cool, let's just fix up everything we've got. Because we're already precious for adding new features, new content. We have to share knowledge internally as well. The last speaker talked about documenting code. Yeah, we've got 25 plus years worth of code. We don't have 25 years worth of documentation. We've got like assumed knowledge as well. And there's always people in the studio you can go to. Because luckily enough, like I said, some of them have been there for 30 years, some for 20, some for 18. So there's experience and we can go there and ask them, but that's the time sink on them. So we kind of do this, we need an explanation of systems and tools. We have monthly internal dev talks, or we do when we're not really busy, like we have been over the past year. So yeah, the FM26 dev cycle has been a really big one. New engine in Unity, new licensing partners, a revamp of older systems. And that's, I guess, we have to invest in retention on that. And again, most studios work on individual game releases. Yeah, we're fortunate enough that we work on what is an annual title. So, you release a game, you deliver updates, and then you just go to work on a different title. 9 times out of 10, that's what happens. We don't get that. We have to iterate on what we've got. We have to, one, fix it, find the bugs with it that we don't know about. Yeah. There's no fixed date for the next release. There is for us. We kind of know it's going to happen every November. Sequels are dependent on success. We're lucky enough we're going to release every year. Release cycle's rigid. There's no time to account for studio changes. People leave studios or move to different studios. For us, that's a problem. We need to keep people because there's a lot of knowledge built up in what they do and expertise that just isn't anywhere else. So yeah, until this cycle, FM was entirely built using our own tool chains. We have our in-house engine as well. So we've not completely just ditched it. We're using Unity with our in-house stuff. But we had to build for multiple platforms. We supported 5 different versions of FM. So Football Manager Mobile, Football Manager Console, Football Manager Touch, and Arcade. Yeah. So there's a lot of technology that went into building for those different systems. We even built FM for Stadia at one point as well. We don't build for Stadia anymore, but we did. So we have this huge bespoke system, and our tech's iterated on each cycle as well. So sometimes that's, we've got a new platform to support, we'll add that in. Other times it's a case of, we could improve the way we built for that platform. But we don't need to just develop the next version of FM. We had to improve upon previous features, previous versions, add stuff to our own engine and toolchain. And that was bringing up what's like a massive amount of sort of technical debt. Yeah. And it became more difficult over time as well to bring people in because no one's got experience with this. So there's a strong learning curve to it. Someone comes in, it's like, how long is it going to be before they're actually an effective member of the team and developing new content or fixing bugs, etc. And that takes a lot of time. Whereas we're switching to Unity, we've kind of alleviated some of that technical debt because more people are familiar with that system. It's easy to get them on board. And we've still got our own internal teams that are familiar with our own internal code. So yeah, we do a simulation of a real world sport as well. So it's not just a case of like, well, FM, what's different this time? We try and simulate the real world and real things happen. So we need to adapt to new rules coming in, different play rules in different regions. Sometimes South Korea decides it's just going to completely change the format of its competitions, or it's going to throw in an extra league. And we need to adopt to real world challenges as well that impact the world of football. COVID happened, that affected the game. Yeah. It affected the developers as well because we didn't know what was quite going to happen with like, are matches going to be played live? How's that going to work? Should we bother simulating a crowd or do we pretend COVID never happened? There's other stuff that happens. It's a bit more grim. There's earthquakes affected Turkey last year. There was a whole load of people that are actually representing our game lost their lives. There was a case of, what do we do about that? That's a decision that was above my pay grade, so that's cool. But other things affect that. Brexit's one that's popped back up again this year. too. When Brexit happened, we put something in the code base. We're like, oh, there's going to be financial rules around who can play here, etc., or how long contracts are. And we put a limit on that, going like, oh yeah, there's a 4-year thing because the government said it would be a 4-year thing and something would be decided. And then just recently we're like, oh, there's a bug. What's this bug? Oh, it stems back to this Brexit date where this thing was going to happen, but it didn't happen. So we'll just change the date and ask them, when's this going to happen? What is this rule changing or whatever? So yeah. Financial rules, financial fair play comes into it, transfer markets. There's all these complex systems that come into what we do that we need to keep changing, altering, iterating upon. And we also need to change the way we structure our code as well, so that stuff's easier to iterate on. But that's us, that's me, that's FM. How do you get into the industry? And I'm sure you've got questions. Feel free to just interrupt, ask as well, because I'm kind of cool with that. But for me, the most important thing is always showcasing your skills. So be prepared to talk about your work. Yeah, don't shy away from it. So know your strengths. Make sure you're comfortable talking about those and what you do, right? At interview, steer the conversation to talk about your best pieces of work. So when you've got your portfolio sorted out, you don't need to have a million things on your portfolio, right? It's a bit like the MCU, right? It was better when there was 5 movies. Now it's kind of confused. I think there was 5 movies. I don't honestly know. But you don't need a lot of content on your portfolio. You need your best 5 pieces of work. Put those up, talk about those. Yeah, we don't need to see your worst pieces of work. Engineers, if you've got GitHub, make sure you know which repos of yours are public and which ones are private. Because if you just link me to your GitHub, I'm going to go and I'm going to be like, oh, cool, you've got 46 repos. What are they? And just by luck, I will always manage to click on the one that is the worst representation of your work. Okay, I don't know how it happens, but it's the one where I'm like, oh, what's that? And I'm like, oh, whoa, gee, what? How? Why did you do that? Like, here's a switch statement with 52 switches in it for which card is this? And it's like, that's not the right way to do that. So, yeah, tailor it, okay? Only have your best pieces on display and steer the conversation to talk about your best pieces, all right? Having an academic portfolio is great. Oh, I'm at staffs, right? Cool. Who does the Mario thing? Yeah? That's you guys, right? You guys do the little Mario in the first year. Do you know how many times I see that on CVs as the first thing that appears? It's cool. Don't get me wrong, I'm not dissing it, but like sometimes that's the only thing that people have on their portfolio. And it's like, I've seen this, a fair few times. I want to see your work and not just your university assessment stuff. Someone did trip me up with it. Someone that didn't go to staffs did something on Mario, but it was using wave function collapse to generate levels for Mario. And I was like, that's really cool. But for the first 30 seconds, I thought you were a staff student, and I was really confused because I was like, this isn't the one I'm used to. But so yeah, having academic stuff's great. Having a portfolio is great. Put your own stuff on there. Add your own flavor. Add your own toppings to the ice cream, right? Add highlights, game jams, mods you've worked on, coursework, etc. Discuss your soft skills. Talk about teamwork, communication, adaptability. Communication's still the biggest thing about hiring people. Portfolios for software engineers, right? GitHub, yeah? Just use GitHub Pages. It's on GitHub. It's free. Don't use Wix because it makes me want to be sick. It's just me. Some people really like Wix. I'm like, every time I see a Wix site, it's a bit like, but every Git repo has that README markdown file that it comes with. Yeah, it's like it's optional. You can just make me one. Cool. Use it. Okay, the number of times someone's like, here's my project, and it's just like code. Like, how? Like, where should I look? Because I'll find the worst piece of code to look at by clicking through, and that's where I'll be. Tell me what the project is. Tell me how to, install it, download it, play it. Like, use that README file to tell me where you want me to look. Because I've got, 5-10 minutes at most to look through CVs and portfolios, right? If you don't draw my eye to where I should be looking for the best stuff, yeah, I'll miss it. And then I'll find the worst stuff, and that's not what you wanted, right? So use that README markdown file, please. But yeah, what should go into your portfolio? Playable demos, always cool. Show your workflow. Whilst it's great to focus on finished products, I'm more interested in looking at workflow, looking at how you got there. This applies for artists as well. When we're looking at like finished artwork, I'm like, how long did that take? Yeah. how did you develop it? Have like have an animated picture file. I don't want to say GIF, but I'm going to say GIF. I don't know which one it is still. Have an animated file that shows me how you created it, how it was structured. Show me like a wireframe. Show me it fully textured. Show me it broken down. Show the workflow, GitHub repos, show them, hide the ones you don't want to show. Give me some design docs to work off. Make it clear, give it some context and polish, yeah? I really want to see finished models, playable code, that sort of stuff. Not just this is half done. But tailor it to role too, understand, if you're applying anywhere, understand what you're applying for, okay? And tailor your portfolio to fit. I frequently see this with art where they have here's a portfolio of character, environment, and hard object or something. And it's which one do you want to be? Do you want to be a character artist, environment artist, or are you going to do hard modeling? Look at the job, look at what it's for, and go, this is clearly a character role. I'll just put all my character work forward. Or this is an environment art role. I'll just put forward all my environment. I have a separate portfolio for each one, okay? Code's a little bit different. Code is code, right? Depends on, are we going for hyper casual stuff that also shows you're a bit of a designer? Could be. But yeah, explain your source code, talk about your workflow, use that GitHub markdown file. If you do get to interview, show curiosity, ask about the team structure tools, workflows, ask about mentorship, learning opportunities, studio culture. There's always, it's an interview is a two-way street, right? Every interview I ever go into to hire someone, I always want it to be the last one. I never want to go I hope someone stuffs up here. I never want to go, I hope this is a car crash of an interview, because then I have to keep interviewing. Yeah. If the interview is really good, I can stop. I'm cool, we found someone. That's great. And that's what I want. So everyone's rooting for you in an interview. But there's always that point where it's hey, do you have any questions? And the worst thing you can kind of do at that point is go, no, it's good. There's always questions. Yeah. Obvious ones are ask about team structure. How many people are on the team? What tools do you use? Do you use Visual Studio Code? Do you use Visual Studio? Do you use Writer? Do you use Code Warrior? No, we're not old. Inquire about what do we do about learning? What's the learning culture like? Is there an L&D culture at the company? That'll kind of excite me if you ask those questions. They'll be cool, you want to learn, great. But always ask questions about the studio. Try and get a feel for it, okay? Because not all places are great. Some places I've worked at were pretty terrible. But, evaluate fit, okay, what does success look like in this role? How does the studio support career growth? These are other questions you can ask that are great. Things to watch out for. If anyone in an interview gives vague answers about crunch, it happens sometimes, or if they're unclear about responsibilities for the role, of you'll just code stuff, okay? Or lack of diversity on the team or the games they produce. But yeah, preparation steps before an interview. Research your studio and its games. Cool. It's so easy now to watch a YouTube who plays of something, right? You can, any studio, any game, you can kind of watch on YouTube. When I was starting out, that wasn't such a thing. So if I had to play a game, I'd have to go and buy it. Steam was around, so I could buy it on Steam and play it maybe, but that was expensive. They didn't have a refund policy back then, so I couldn't, play it for 2 hours and go okay, you can hand this back when the interview doesn't work out. But research your studio and its games, prepare stories using the STAR method, because someone's going to ask you about this of hey, can you tell me about when something was difficult one time and how you handled that? This is the whole, here's a situation, what's the task, what actions happened, and what was the result, okay? Explain that, because someone's going to ask you hey, you worked on a game at university. Do you ever have any disagreements, and how did you resolve them? Yeah? So run through those in your head a couple of times before an interview. And it's good to do before any interview. Just be prepared. You get one of those questions. Be authentic, enthusiastic, be concise, don't waffle. I know, super nervous, you're going to waffle anyway, but try and keep it concise. Just be yourselves, okay? I always say, don't be humorous. Don't have my slides for the CV thing. Don't try and be funny on your CV or cover letter, okay? That's CV and cover letter is sort of factual. CV is really the ingredients and E-numbers on the back of a packet of noodles. It tells me what you've done. Don't use course names or module names. Just tell me what experience you've got, because module names don't mean anything outside of the university you went to. I don't know what experimental games is, but it sounds cool. but I don't know what it teaches you, right? So that's not here, that's somewhere else. But, be concise. This is what you've done. Listen actively, okay? Not along with this when someone's talking. Don't sit there, because otherwise I'll think you're frozen and I'll weird out and I'll be like, is he frozen? No. Number of times I've done that recently. Engage with the interviewer, try and ask questions of them. If they say something, cotton onto it, twig onto it, try and talk about similar interests if you can. If you're interested in football, you're probably interviewing at the right place if you're interviewing Football Manager or Sports Interactive. After the interview, send a thoughtful thank you note. Yeah? It's so easy to do, but it's actually so few people do it, right? And so it really resonates with whoever does the interview, because, the number of people I've interviewed and never got anything back afterwards. And it's always like, and then when someone does it, you're like, that's cool. It kind of keeps you in mind as well. Because like after an interview, I might have another interview straight away, or another one, because we try and push them all together if we can. But if you send a note afterwards, it's like, oh yeah, you've popped back up. Suddenly you're in my mind again. Reflect on what went well and what didn't go so well after every interview. Take some notes, write it down. The only way to improve really for me is to take notes and remember stuff. Handling rejections, ask for feedback. Yeah. I don't know how many people I interviewed for the internships that we have, right? And I think I had 3 people ask for some feedback. Yeah. Like doing tests and all that. I was like, sorry, you've not made it through. Here's the rejection email that we send out when tests fail. And then someone sent one back in going like, oh, hey, can I have some, because there's an email in there that says, hey, if you want some feedback. And they were like 3 people out of like 200. Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll actually sit down. We'll have a 45-minute chat and I'll go through your test and tell you where you went wrong. Maybe you can learn from it. Ask for feedback. You might get that opportunity. You might not, but you'll still get some feedback, hopefully, right? Learn from what went wrong. Get clarification as well. Don't just assume what went wrong. Ask like, where did I stuff up at the interview? Where did I stuff up on the tests? Don't take rejection personally. Yeah. You should be applying for lots and lots of positions. Okay. Not just 2. I used to get this when I was teaching. Students be like, I've applied for an internship at Treyarch and Blizzard. And they both rejected me, so internships aren't for me. It's like, come on, you want to apply at like as many places as you can to kind of, hedge your bets a little bit. I had one guy, he was at Quali. He graduated and worked at Quali for a while. He was like Mr. Spreadsheet. He was awesome. He had a spreadsheet of every place he applied. It was something like 140 applications this guy sent out. And he kept track of all of them. It was like one of those data points where it's like, okay, these are the ones that, got to the first round, second round, just rejected straight away. He ended up with 4 different offers, on the table for internships. He took one in Holland, so kind of fun. Or I should say the Netherlands, but it was Holland. Interviews are an iteration, So every time you do an interview, you get more experience of doing them, okay? They're always uncomfortable. They'll never get easy, but you'll get better at them and you'll get more used to those questions of like, how would you handle this situation? What's your 5-year plan, etc. Keep learning. So everything in games development keeps changing as well. If you wanted to get into a career where things always just stay the same, this is not it. Things keep iterating upon. Unity keeps changing stuff, seemingly stuff that wasn't broken. But then they're like, hey, we changed this. It's like, no, please don't. So there's new engines, new languages. Rust's a new thing that keeps popping up every now and then. I still have to get better at it. New techniques to pick up. It's fine not to know everything, and it's fine not to know now, right? But if you've got the right tools and right mindset, you'll know it soon enough, okay? And also, it's fine to admit stuff at interview. Like if someone says, hey, do you know this? Don't blag it. Just be like, actually, I don't know that. That's cool. It's fine not to know everything. But be persistent, be curious, and just keep creating stuff. Cool? And the other one is for portfolios for engineers. Keep it short. Doesn't need to be a full game. Can just be, hey, I wrote an image loader that loads PKM files, etc. And here's how it works. Really simple, really straightforward, but it shows that you know compression, decompression, and also a few different bit shifting patterns, etc. to get stuff out for various color channels and color data. It's actually a pretty good thing to have on your portfolio. It's like, hey, here's how to load this old image format that no one uses anymore. It's really quite difficult. But that's it in a nutshell, yeah? For 35 minutes or however long it took. Any questions? Anything? Yo.
Yeah. Hello. So whenever I look at possible jobs, 95% of them always have a requirement for like at least 4 years of experience.
Bullshit. Honestly. So I get this a lot with, and this differs between genders as well, right? Because I've seen this, and this is really cool. So I'm one of those people that will be like, cool, I have 3 of the things on this list of 7 things. I'm going to apply. Yeah? Other people will be like, oh, I need to have all 7 before I can apply. It's like, no. Yeah? Just if it says you need 4 years of experience for something, a lot of the times things we write for employment offers, letters, etc., that go out, like it gets wrangled through the HR corporate speak machine, and they add some of this stuff to it. Yeah, I've seen it where someone's like, you need 5 years of C# experience. That's a language that's been around for 2 years. That used to happen when I was applying for jobs. Or people had asked me, the worst one I did at interview where I really stuffed up. This is recorded, yeah? So, yeah? Okay, cool. I'll do the other one. So the one where I really stuffed up is someone asked me if I knew SQL. Yeah? They're like, do you know SQL? And I was like, nope. Like, no, I don't know that one. I know something. And then like minutes later, my brain was like, sorry, did you mean SQL? And they were like, yeah, SQL. I'm like, I've never heard it called SQL before. We just call it SQL, right? Yeah, I know that. And they were already like, doubtful, doesn't know it. But like, yeah. So ask about acronyms and stuff like, do you know SQL? Like, what? Of course I do. No. But yeah, some job adverts are written where they ask for experience. That just check it off. If it's a graduate role or a junior role, it shouldn't require any amount of experience. As far as I'm concerned, graduate and junior roles should be like entry-level roles where it's like, as long as you've proved you've got to university counts as 4 years of experience in something, doesn't it? Flag it. Cool. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Thank you.